No, Chris Johnston, you didn't have to go out there and do this, but you did. You did it. You linked two of my favorite teams to one of the top trade chips on the market right now. And here's the thing, I'll say this. I said this last time we talked about this guy, I'll say it again here. This is a dangerous video, because this guy could get traded as soon as this video goes live on YouTube. This guy could get traded in a few hours. This guy could get traded later tonight. This guy could get traded tomorrow. This is a video that might not have a long lifespan, but we're going out there and talking about it anyway. Because earlier today on the Chris Johnston show, we had ourselves some new notes in regards to Columbus Blue Jackets defenseman David Jiricek, and new teams that have been interested and involved in the conversation for this player. Jiricek is in the Cleveland Monsters in the AHL right now. He probably shouldn't be in the AHL. He's too good to play in that league. But the Blue Jackets, with their claiming of Dante Fabro and their overall structure, they have not given Jiricek any much of an opportunity compared to what he probably should be receiving. Now, this is what Johnston said earlier on today's show. There's around 8 teams in on Jiricek. Minnesota is the frontrunner, but names like Nashville, Pittsburgh, Vancouver, Philadelphia, and Montreal are also in there too. Columbus will consider a pick and a prospect package now, and the feeling is it will happen soon. So, last time we made a video talking about David Jiricek, it was in a conversation going over the Penguins, the Flyers, the Sharks, the Wild, and the Sabres. We also threw the Canucks in there, but just kind of as a meme, like, oh yeah, there was somebody on Reddit that said the Canucks were going to trade for Jiricek. That was kind of debunked at that time. Frank Saravalli said Monday night that he didn't think the Vancouver Canucks were going to be that team. He said that the trade was going to happen soon, but that Vancouver was not going to be the destination. But it's interesting now to see the Chris Johnston report saying that the contrary is also a fact here. He names Vancouver as a legit destination, and if you had seen the video we made earlier in today's show, Filip Hronek is out. There is a significant lack of talent on the Canucks right side D right now, with Myers, Juleson, and Desharnais as your 1, 2, 3, which sounds ridiculous. Not to say that David Jiricek is, in particular, a better player right now than Tyler Myers is, but he certainly would stabilize that right side a little bit more in this desperate time of need. Now, interestingly enough, on the Canucks front, we did have ourselves some more updates. This was an article published by Tyson Cole earlier yesterday. Columbus told the Canucks they didn't have the prospects for Jiricek, and the Canucks do not want to move Willander. This article will be linked in the description. What it does is it cites some comments made by Rick Dhaliwal yesterday about the David Jiricek situation. And to be fair, yesterday we didn't actually know about Hronek's injury because, of course, yesterday is when the injury happened. So maybe things have changed since this article. Who knows? But yesterday on Donnie and Dolly, Rick Dhaliwal said that the Canucks were indeed interested in David Jiricek. They talked to Columbus, but Columbus told a bunch of teams, including Vancouver, that they didn't have the assets to get this guy. Canucks didn't have the prospects, and they didn't want to give up what Columbus wanted. You know, Columbus wanted Tom Willander in return because he is a right-shot defenseman. The Canucks are very high on Tom Willander. Do they really know that Jiricek is better than Willander? They obviously don't think so, or they could have gotten a deal done by doing a flip with Willander and Jiricek. They didn't do that. Teams will try and get back into Jiricek. Vancouver can do it, but right now, I've been told the Blue Jackets have told the Canucks they don't have the prospects and they don't have what it takes to get that deal done at this moment. So, that was the scoop from yesterday. Who knows if things have changed now, because Vancouver has lost out on Filip Hronek. Maybe there's a bigger desperation there. Maybe Patrick Allvin says, screw it, okay, here, Tom Willander and a second-round pick for David Jiricek, which ultimately is not that bad when you consider Jiricek's position in the 2023? NHL Draft? Yeah, it was 2023. He was taken with the 11th overall pick by Vancouver, and if you think about Jiricek being a 6th overall pick back in 2022, it's like, okay, you're moving up in the draft a few spots to take a similarly positioned guy, and you had to give up a second-round pick to get it done. Like, I don't necessarily think Willander for Jiricek 1-for-1 is good enough. I think Jiricek has top 2 potential. I don't necessarily see the same out of Willander, although I do realize that a lot of people, like Craig Button, for example, tossed out a few comparable names like Charlie McAvoy, for example, for Tom Willander, which would be great. I just don't really know if I see it, to be honest. So for Vancouver, who knows if there's any desperation that would allow a David Jiricek trade to come and go a little bit quicker. Talking about Montreal, though, this is also an interesting scoop. The Habs always find themselves in trade conversations with young top prospects. Whether that's by design, maybe it's an industry plant. Hey, let's boost Montreal engagement by talking about David Jiricek, by talking about Pierre-Luc Dubois, by talking about Jack Eichel, by talking about Marty Necas, by talking about Rutger McGroarty, by talking about every prospect and young guy and top-tier talent under the sun. Everybody gets linked to Montreal, whether it's Kent Hughes or Marc Bergevin at the helm. The Habs are always getting involved here. And ultimately, I'd say, if you were to try to make some sort of a deal happen, it's a lot more easy with Montreal. There are a lot of other prospects that Columbus probably would see value in. And if you wanted to bolster up that right side on D, having a 1-2 of Jiricek, Reinbacher long-term is disgusting. That is amazing. And then you have whomever else it is on the third pairing to round it out offensively. I guess you could say maybe it's a Logan Mailloux, maybe it's somebody else. Cayden Gooley, David Reinbacher, Lane Hudson, David Jiricek, and then you add on like a Struble or whomever else, and then Logan Mailloux. That's a stacked D-core. And they could all grow together and all develop at the same rate alongside of each other so that by the time the Canadiens are super competitive, there is a great window of opportunity to capitalize on that. And ultimately, I'd say for Montreal, because this is the new team that we're talking about here, Chris Johnston just noted a bunch of other teams that we had known about already. Except for Nashville, actually. Yeah, no, we didn't talk about Nashville in the last video. I kind of really don't want to talk about Nashville, to be honest. For Montreal, this might actually be perfect, because David Jiricek's already NHL ready now. You don't have to wait like you're waiting for David Reinbacher to firstly recover from injuries and then play a few seasons in the AHL. David Jiricek, despite being drafted a year earlier than David Reinbacher, is already an established AHL stud who has nothing left to prove at that level. He just has to play at the NHL level now and start doing his thing over there before things really start looking up for him. And it's kind of ridiculous when you think about it, like, oh yeah, like he's gonna go from Columbus to Montreal, for example, and it's not like he could crack the Columbus Blue Jackets core, so how could he crack Montreal's? It's mostly because the Blue Jackets are refusing to give Jiricek that opportunity to develop. So if you're a Montreal Canadiens fan, I don't think you should be turned off by the idea of Jiricek just because his inability to crack the Blue Jackets lineup is there. It's ultimately just a matter of circumstance, and I think if he was on any other team, he probably would be challenging for at least like 12 minutes a night in the NHL, or if you even wanted to push it, maybe like 13, 14, or if you wanted to be more conservative, say, okay, here, you're getting 10. You're getting 7th defenseman rotating minutes, but you're still playing because he still deserves to be there. Jiricek absolutely is wasting away if he's still in the AHL at any point this season. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. If you are a Canadiens fan, how do you feel about the idea of David Jiricek heading over to your team? If you're a Canucks fan, what are your thoughts on the idea of Vancouver biting and making some sort of a Willander for Jiricek trade now that Filip Hronek is out? And if you're a Blue Jackets fan, how do you feel about all these conversations? Would you rather take on a Tom Willander and maybe a second or a third from Vancouver, or would you be interested more so in some sort of a deal with Montreal? They have a lot better prospects, I'd say, in Montreal compared to Vancouver, and a lot more flexibility, so it might be easier to ring out a deal there. But when you think about the opportunity for the player, is Vancouver a better destination? I'd say that mostly because of the injury to Filip Hronek. There is a desperate need for right-handed defensemen because Tyler Myers just ain't it. It's almost like a similar situation to Kevin Lankinen. There's an open spot in Vancouver, there's an opportunity, there's a role that needs to be filled, and there's a guy who's ready to fill it. David Jiricek might not ever be like a top 4 defenseman in the next month or so, but if he's able to at least show signs of becoming that relatively soon, then he still has a definite chance to fulfill that top 2 ceiling that everybody thought he had back in 2022. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about David Jiricek and this entire trade update. I hope you enjoyed this video, and bye.